Hello everybody and welcome to another Unreal Engine tutorial. So in this one I'm going to be showing you how to create a landscape material that allows you to paint different types of textures onto the surface of a landscape. So you can paint pathways, you can paint where you want rocks, where you want there to be grass and things like that. So let's get started. So I've just got a scene here that was sort of made up from one of the last tutorials I did. With this little village scene in here. I'm using the advanced village pack where you can get off the Unreal Marketplace. You don't have to use this. This is just what I'm going to use for reference, so it's a bit more visual. And I've got a sculpted landscape here that I want to paint. So what I'm going to do is show you how to create that sort of material. So first of all, I'm going to go into the advanced village pack folder and go to the materials. If you're not using the advanced village pack, you go to your materials folder wherever you've saved them. If you're using the starter content, for example, you could go to starter content and materials, and you could put it in here. Because I'm using the advanced village textures, I'm going to do it in here. So materials, I'm going to right click in a blank space and create a new material, and I'm just going to call that M underscore. There is already one called landscape in this pack, so I'm just going to call this one new landscape. Okay, and I'm going to double click on it to open it up, and you'll see we have a window that looks like this. So this is the material editor, and it's again node based, or like blueprints. So we need to create a material, put some stuff in here to make up the material. Now this node here is what the final output of the material is. So it outputs what the base color looks like, how metallic it is, what the specular is, and so on. So first thing we need to do is let it know what we actually want. So I'm going to right click in a blank space over here and do search for a texture sample. There is texture sample, which basically means loading in an image file. So texture sample here. If I look at the details, so whatever node you've got selected, it shows the details down here on the left, and you'll see that there is a texture slot here where you can choose a texture file. So I'm going to click the drop down, and I'm going to want some grass. So I'm going to search for grass, and let's see, there's two different ones. So ground grass is in the starter content, and the other grass is in the landscape, the advanced village pack. So I'm going to use that one. So I'm going to load in the grass, and you see now it shows you a little preview of the texture file that you've loaded in there. And I'm going to also get, we're going to need multiple layers basically. So in this example, I'm going to do grass, I'm going to do something like gravel, and I'm going to do some rock. So I'm going to need another one of these texture samples. So the quickest way to get one of those is simply to select this one and press Ctrl W, and that will copy and paste this node. So I've got another one here, but on this one I'm going to change to a different one. Let's go with the Pebbles. Okay, let's go with that texture for our sort of more gravelly dirt kind of appearance. And I'm going to want one more texture sample, so I'm going to copy and paste that again. And I'm going to get the let's see, what should we go with? Need some sort of rock or something. Let's go with search for rock. Looks like we've got several to choose from. Most of these I think are from the starter content. I'm gonna go for, let's go for the granite, I think. Yeah. No, I'm gonna go for slate. Let's go for the slate rock. Okay. So there's our slate rock. Okay. And what we need to do then is these need to basically go into base color, but we can't just plug them all in because you can only have one in at a time. So it'll swap them out. Look. So we need something in between to feed into first, and that is going to be a landscape layer blend. So landscape layer blend node. Now when you first put this in, you might think, oh well, can't plug anything into that. There's no inputs on this side. What you need to actually do is when you've got it selected, look over here. You see it's got 0 array elements. You actually need to add in array elements, and it's basically however many different materials you want to use. So at the minute I've got 3, so I'm going to add 3 array elements. Okay, but you can have as many of these as you want, really. You know, so if you've got 10 different materials you want to use, you'd add 10 layer blends. Okay, so that's fine. But now we need to just customize each layer. So you see here, each one just says layer none. That's not ideal. We need to actually give these names. So over here on the left, you can expand by clicking on the little triangle. You can expand each array element, and you can give them a name. So this one I'm going to call grass, and I'm going to set the preview weight of this one at 1. Okay, and then I'm going to minimize that one and open the next one. This one is, let's call it gravel. I'm going to set the preview weight of this one at 0.5. And then the final one, I'm going to name that rock. And I'm going to leave the preview weight at 0. So with the preview weight, basically for each different layer that you've got, each one has to have a different preview weight, ranging from 0 up to 1. So if either of them have the same preview weight, it kind of confuses it. So I find it's always best just to give them different values. So if you had 10 layers, I would put each one starting at 0, then the next one should be 0.1, then the next one 0.2, next one 0.3, until you get up to 1, until you get to 1.0. That's how I would do it. So make sure you do that. If you don't change the preview layer, the preview weight, you might get some issues. So make sure preview weight is different on all 3 of these. Right, and then you can connect the RGB inputs into each of these. And then that goes into base color. Okay, so that's all well and good. You see now you can see the material that's appearing. It appears to be blending the materials together at the minute. We've got green. The grass is kind of blending with the other 2 as well, but that's not a problem right now. What we do need to do though is these materials all have their own normal maps as well, which gives some like bumpy details to them. So I'm just going to move these all up a bit. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select these nodes and I'm going to copy them with Control W, move them down here, and I'm going to change each one of these to the normal map variant. So the grass, click on here. You can see just below it in the list here, I've got this one that's got _n at the end of it, and the actual preview image is kind of like this sort of purple color. So that's the normal map for this grass. So I'm going to select that. You can see it's changed there. Do the same for this. So Pebbles _n, and then the last one, rock slate _n. So that's now using the normal maps for each of those, and I'm going to then plug that into the normal input there. Alright, so now you can see there is a bit of bumpy detail on there, which is good. The other thing we need to do though is also we need to be able to customize the coordinates for this, because this texture might appear way too big when we put it on the landscape. So like the grass and stuff might appear to be too large. So to fix that, what we can do here is search for a landscape layer coords. So this node, and then this goes into each of the UV's input on all the texture samples. So plug that into UV's on all of these. You can plug them into the normal map ones as well, because you want to make sure they all have the same size, otherwise the bumpiness won't match up to the image. Okay, then on the landscape layer coords, this value here, mapping scale, is basically how many times it can sort of tile. So I'm going to set mine to 3 for now, and then see how we do with that. Okay, so you can see now the image is actually much bigger the stones are huge now, but that's fine. In the actual landscape, that might be about the right size. So let's click apply and give it a sec, and then click save. Right, and then if we go back to our level, we should now be able to put it on the landscape. So what you need to do is click on your landscape, so you've got it selected, like I have here, and then in the details, you can see there's a material slot here. I'm simply going to drag my new landscape material, drop it in there, and then give it a moment to compile. So yeah, the landscape should go like this. It should sort of basically pretty much turn black. That's normal. So what we need to do now is go to the landscape painting tools. To do that, you need to go to modes at the top here, click on modes and go to landscape. Now, if you're in the older versions of Unreal, you'll find there's a tab. It's one of the tabs across the top. The landscape tab is up here. So click on the landscape tab to get to this screen. And then what you need to then do is go across to the painting tab. So you might remember from a previous tutorial where I did the sculpting tools. But if you actually, there's another tab here called paint. If you go to that, and then here you go, you'll see the materials that I've added. Grass, gravel and rock are all here. Okay, however, we can't paint just yet. You see how the brush is like red? So we're not allowed to paint just yet, and that's because we need to add a little file to this. So on each layer, you'll see there's a little plus icon here that says create layer info. We need to do this, so click on the plus icon and then choose weight blended layer. Okay, and I tend to just save it with the default spot where it wants to save it. So I'm just going to click OK. Then I'm going to click on gravel, add weight blended layer. Okay, I'm going to click rock, weight blended layer. Okay. Right, so now as you can see, it's applied to the grass, and the grass is everywhere at the minute. Okay, but maybe we don't want grass. Like around here, you know, there's going to be around the village and stuff, there's going to be a lot of people walking around in this village. So there's going to be a lot of places that are kind of worn. So let's click on the gravel, and now you see my brush has now turned from red into the default sort of bluey color. And now if I click and drag, it'll go, you'll get this grey blockage for a second whilst it calculates the texture. But then once it's done, look, there we are. So now I can paint where I want this more gravelly, pebbly texture. Okay. And you can, again, you can obviously change the size of the brush to add in sort of finer details. You know, I think around the campfire would probably be pretty worn because of the fire would be constantly burning the grass away. But yeah, you can basically use this to, you know, make little pathways and stuff. Like so. And then with the rock, you know, you could go to some of these really steep hills over here. Let's make the brush a lot bigger, and you could paint them. Again, when you first paint, it's going to sort of look like it's freaked out a little bit, but then once it's calculated it, there we go. You know, paint, you know, these areas to look more like rock. I mean, it isn't the best rock texture, but because again, you know, from a distance you can see the tiling quite well, but so you might want to use a better one than this, but this is what we got. So, but yeah, you can essentially then paint where you want rock, where you want gravel, you know, all sorts of things like that. Now, the other thing about this current material though is look how shiny it looks when I angle myself towards the sun. You know, grass and gravel and stuff don't reflect that much, at least not when they're, especially not when they're dry. So I'm just going to go from modes back into the select mode, and I'm going to go back to the landscape material. So the quickest way I can get back there is if I'm on my my landscape, I can see the material over here. If I click this magnifying glass, that'll just take me straight to the folder where the landscape texture is. Could also, if you've still got it open, you can click on the tab up here to reopen it. The reason it looks so shiny is because we've got like metallic and specular and roughness don't have any values on it, so it's just giving them their default value. So I'm going to hold down the 1 key on the keyboard and left click, and that's going to create this little node. This little node is it's just a value node. It literally has a number assigned to it. I'm going to plug that in to the roughness, Okay, so currently roughness is at 0, which means it's now super shiny, as you can see there. So if I was to like apply that and go back into my level, it's going to recalculate the material, and it's going to come back really, really glossy, which is obviously not what we actually want, but I'm just demonstrating it. Okay, so now you can see, yeah, it's actually gone reflective. Like you can see the reflection of the house in the ground there. So that's not what we want, because that's not how grass works. So let's just go back into the landscape, and let's assign a more suitable roughness, maybe something quite high. I think something like 0.8. So it's only got a little bit of specular on it. Let's apply that and see how it looks. Just give it a moment to compile the shaders. There we go. Okay, that's a bit better. It's still probably a little bit too shiny, but that is a bit better. But the other things you can put in is like metallic as well. Like it's grass and rock and things. It's not metallic at all. So you don't want to put those in. So metallic should really be 0. So let's plug that in. Let's put the roughness up a bit more as well, though. I think that needs to be higher. Let's just put the roughness up all the way up to 1, which is basically maximum. Click apply and then let it recompile. There, that's a lot better. Okay. But yeah, so that is how to make a multi-layered material for you to be able to paint on landscapes. So I hope you found that useful. And I will be doing some more tutorials. The next one I'm going to do is showing you how to use the visibility mask to create cave entrances and things like that. So thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.